They toasted my sister for saving the family.
To family.
I handed them the receipts.
Last Sunday night, my mom pulled out the good plates. If you grew up in a Southern family, you know what that means. Somebody's about to lie through porcelain. It wasn't Thanksgiving, it wasn't anyone's birthday, but she was polishing those dishes like the queen was stopping by. My gut told me this wasn't dinner. It was a ceremony. My name's Lena Porter. I'm 30, single, and apparently still the spare tire of the Porter family. My older sister, Hannah, she's the golden child. Shiny, loud, and impossible to compete with. She always lands on her feet, even when she jumps off a cliff she built herself. That night, Mom had the candles lit and a roast that smelled like forgiveness. Dad was in his usual spot at the head of the table, straight-backed like a judge. The only thing missing was a gavel. The second Hannah walked in, the whole room shifted. She breezed down the stairs like she was accepting an Oscar. Silk blouse, perfect hair, that smug half smile that said, "You'll never catch up to me, Lena." I tried to play it cool, stabbing at my salad, pretending not to notice how Mom's eyes glowed when she looked at her. Dad cleared his throat, that sound that always came right before he declared something important. He raised his glass. "Your sister," he said, with that tone like he was about to knight her, "has always been the provider, the one who keeps this family going." There it was, the script we all knew by heart. Everyone clapped. Even Uncle Rob, who hadn't clapped for anything since the Cubs lost the playoffs in 2016. I just sat there, the fork still in my hand, staring at Hannah's perfect little smirk. It hit me then. They actually believed it. They believed the woman who'd been between jobs for 8 months was the reason we all stayed afloat. They believed her morning lattes and self-care retreats were networking. "Thanks, Dad," she said, flashing that fake humble smile. "I just try to take care of everyone." Take care. Those words tasted like rust, because 6 months ago, she'd called me crying in a Target parking lot, saying her bank messed up and froze her account. She needed someone to co-sign a credit card, just for a few weeks. I didn't even think twice. That's what I did. I fixed things. But tonight, watching her bask in applause while I quietly paid off her mess, something inside me twisted. I could feel my heart beat in my teeth. Mom leaned over, whispering like she was sharing sacred wisdom. "You should take notes from your sister Lena. She knows how to plan her life." I smiled so tightly it hurt. "Yeah," I said. "She's a real visionary." Dad didn't catch the sarcasm. "That's right," he said proudly. "Hannah's got her head on straight, always thinking ahead." I wanted to ask, ahead to what? The next brunch? The next Instagram post about manifesting abundance? But instead, I sipped my wine and let the bitterness burn my throat. As they talked, I noticed the table, the way Mom had lined the plates perfectly, how the napkins stood like swans. Everything about this dinner screamed performance, and Hannah, she was the star. Then she turned to me, all soft voice and fake concern. "You look tired, Len. Working too hard again?" That line, that tone, it wasn't care. It was pity dressed as grace. And the worst part? Everyone at the table thought she was being kind. I felt my pulse slow, like the calm before a storm. "Guess some of us have to," I said. The room went quiet, just long enough for Dad to shift uncomfortably. Then Mom laughed too loud, breaking the tension. "Oh, Lena, always so serious." They moved on, but I didn't. Because while they toasted to Hannah's generosity, my phone was lighting up under the table. Another notification from the credit company, minimum payment due. I remember tracing the rim of my glass, feeling that cold crystal hum against my fingers. Something about that sound made me realize I'd been buying peace for years. And like everything in this family, peace came with interest. When dinner ended, Hannah hugged everyone goodbye like she was on a farewell tour. As she passed me, she leaned close and whispered, "Try to smile more. It's not a good look, you being jealous." Jealous, that word was gasoline. I didn't say anything then, not yet. But I smiled. The kind of smile that makes people nervous because they can't tell what it means. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling and thought about all the times I'd been told to be the bigger person. All it ever meant was be the quieter one. But something in me shifted that night. Because when the good china comes out, truth is about to get served. And next time, I'd be the one holding the plate. 6 months before that dinner, I was standing in the frozen food aisle at Kroger when Hannah called me, crying so hard I thought someone had died. "Lena, I need your help," she said between shaky breaths. "The bank froze my account because of some dumb clerical error. I can't even pay my rent. can you co-sign a new card for me just for a month? Please, I swear I'll fix it. I remember pressing my phone between my shoulder and cheek, looking at a bag of frozen peas like it could give me advice. I didn't even think twice. That's what I did. I cleaned up her messes, patched the holes, kept the peace. I told her yes before my brain caught up with my mouth. That 1 month turned into 2, then 3. The first bill came in at $400. Doable. By the next statement, it was $2,000. Then $5,000. Every time I opened my inbox, I felt my stomach twist. She always had a new excuse. The card's glitching. A refund's on the way. I'm pitching to investors next week. She said it so casually, like I was her personal credit union. And every time she'd finish with the same line. You're a lifesaver, Len. I don't know what I'd do without you. I knew exactly what she'd do without me, face reality, but she never had to. Meanwhile, I was juggling 2 jobs, teaching art to middle schoolers during the day and bartending 3 nights a week just to stay afloat. My apartment smelled like acrylic paint and cheap whiskey half the time. Still, I made the minimum payments on that card because I was terrified of ruining my credit. Or maybe, if I'm honest, I was terrified of ruining the illusion that my family was fine. Every time I thought about telling Mom, I'd imagine her disappointed sigh. Lena, don't stir the pot. Your sister's under a lot of pressure. Pressure? Hannah hadn't worked a full-time job in years. She was building her brand, whatever that meant. Her version of work was ordering lavender lattes and calling it networking. Then one afternoon, during my lunch break, my phone buzzed with another payment reminder. I opened the app and saw the number, $8,427.39. My hand literally went cold. I texted her right away. Hey Hannah, I just checked the card. This is getting out of hand. We need to talk. She replied 5 minutes later with a pink heart emoji and the words, Don't stress, babe. It's handled. Handled. Like debt could just dissolve if you smiled hard enough. That night, I was closing up the bar when a guy named Mark, one of the regulars, noticed I looked off. You good, Lena? He asked. He was one of those quiet, observant types who tipped well and never crossed lines. I told him the truth, or at least part of it, that my sister owed me money and my parents still treated her like royalty. He laughed, not unkindly. You know what my dad used to say? Some people build bridges, others build excuses. Sounds like your sister's in construction. I laughed, but it came out hollow. The next morning, Hannah posted a photo on Instagram, her standing on a rooftop bar in Nashville, cocktail in hand, captioned, Manifesting Abundance. I remember staring at it, half in disbelief, half in fury. My abundance was 3 side hustles and a credit score bleeding out in real time. That's when something in me cracked. Just a little. I started keeping receipts. Screenshots, statements, every text she sent. Not for revenge, but because I knew one day someone would try to rewrite the story. In my family, truth only counted if you could print it out. Then came the cherry on top. Mom called one evening, her voice syrupy sweet. We're thinking of doing Sunday dinner soon. Hannah has some exciting news. I bit back a laugh. Let me guess, she invented brunch? Mom sighed. You're being cynical again. You should be happy for your sister. Happy. That word didn't sit right anymore. I was tired, not physically, but deep tired. The kind that crawls into your bones when you've spent years carrying weight that was never yours. 2 days later, Hannah called again. Len, babe, can you cover one more charge? My new card's coming next week, promise. I told her no, just no. She went quiet for a second, then said, Wow, you're really gonna nickel and dime your own sister after everything I've done for you? I almost dropped the phone. After everything she'd done for me, I wanted to scream, but instead I said calmly, You mean like maxing out my credit and ignoring me for months? Yeah, thanks for that. She hung up. For a week, I didn't hear from her. Then the next statement hit. $8,700, now with late fees. My hands were shaking as I stared at the screen. I tried to breathe, but the air felt heavy, like my apartment was shrinking. That's when I realized she wasn't just careless, she was cruel. Because cruelty isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just the quiet expectation that you'll keep forgiving. At school, I started spacing out during class. My students, God bless them, thought I was daydreaming. One of them, a sweet kid named Zoe, handed me a crayon drawing that said, You look tired, Ms. Porter. Here's a sun. I taped it to my desk. Every time I felt that panic rise, I looked at that little yellow sun and reminded myself, I was still standing. Then one Friday, as I was locking up the classroom, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. "Is this Ms. Porter?" a man asked. "This is from the collections department regarding a past due account." I hung up. That's when I knew. This wasn't just my sister's debt anymore. It was mine. And she'd never intended to fix it. That weekend, I drove home to visit my parents. Hannah's car, the one she couldn't afford, was in the driveway. Mom opened the door, all smiles. "Look who's here, your sister just got back from her Women in Business retreat." I walked in and saw Hannah lounging on the couch, scrolling her phone, a smoothie in her hand. "Hey," she said casually, like nothing was wrong. I wanted to shake her. I wanted to scream, but instead I sat down across from her and said quietly, "You owe me over $8,000. She blinked like she didn't understand English. "Oh my God, Lena, are we really doing this? In front of Mom?" Mom froze mid-step. "What's going on?" "Nothing," Hannah said quickly, her voice sugary again. "Just a misunderstanding. Lena loves to exaggerate." That's when I realized it wasn't just her. It was all of them. This whole family was built on denial. Polished smiles over rotting truth. I left that day without another word. On the drive home, the sky opened up and it started pouring. The kind of rain that sounds like applause on the windshield. I remember gripping the steering wheel and whispering to myself, "You can't keep fixing what doesn't want to be fixed." By the time I got home, I'd made up my mind. Next time they wanted to play house with their good china and perfect daughter act, I'd bring the receipts, literally, because sometimes the only way to stop being the family's punching bag is to stop showing up empty-handed. So fast forward to last Sunday, the infamous dinner. You remember, the one with Mom's good plates and Hannah's halo so bright it could power the whole zip code. I had spent the week rehearsing what I'd say. Every version started calm and ended with me flipping the damn table. But that night, I didn't feel rage. I felt focus, like the second before a storm when everything goes still. Mom had outdone herself again. Candles, roast beef, piano music playing from her Alexa. The whole, we're the perfect American family setup. Dad was polishing his glasses like he was about to deliver a verdict. Hannah walked in 10 minutes late, kissed Mom's cheek, and acted like she'd just descended from heaven. Everyone laughed when she joked about traffic and busy schedules. Busy doing what? Influencing Starbucks cups? Dinner started fine. Small talk about weather, work, and how Hannah just got an offer to collaborate with a wellness brand. Mom gasped like she'd been knighted by Oprah. I sat there chewing my overcooked carrots, thinking how wild it was that this woman could sell vibes while I sold my time by the hour. Then Dad cleared his throat. My stomach dropped. "Here it comes." "We wanted to celebrate tonight," he said, lifting his wine, "because your sister's been such a rock for this family." And there it was, the script again, the same scene, the same lines, the same applause. Except this time, I was done clapping. I reached into my purse and pulled out a small gold envelope. I placed it on the table right next to the mashed potatoes. "If Hannah's been keeping us afloat," I said, my voice calm, "then she probably won't mind clearing this up." The room went dead quiet. You could hear the ceiling fan spinning. Mom blinked. "What's this?" "Receipts," I said, "for the $8,427.39 that I've been paying off since March." Hannah froze mid-bite. "Lena, what are you doing?" I smiled, but it wasn't kind. Balancing the books, apparently. Dad frowned, confused. "That can't be right. Your sister doesn't owe you." "She does," I cut in. "Because she used my name to open a credit card. She said she needed it for 1 month. It's been 6. I've been covering it while she's been, what's the word, manifesting?" Mom gasped like I'd just dropped a curse word at church. "Lena, this isn't appropriate." "Neither is lying," I said, sliding the envelope toward Hannah. "Go ahead, open it. You'll find every statement, every charge, including that wellness retreat in Nashville and your $600 branding shoot. You even bought a ring light. You're welcome for the glow-up." Hannah's face went red, then white. "You could have just talked to me privately." "I tried," I said softly. "You sent me a heart emoji." Uncle Rob coughed into his napkin to hide a laugh. Dad slammed his hand on the table. "Enough. We don't air dirty laundry at family dinners." "Then maybe stop making speeches about who does the laundry," I said before I could stop myself. The silence that followed could have frozen fire. Mom stood up, trembling. "You've embarrassed us all." "No, Mom," I said, meeting her eyes. "I just stopped protecting your favorite illusion." For the first time in my life, my father didn't have a comeback. He just looked old, tired, maybe even guilty. Hannah stood up, grabbed her purse, and hissed, You're jealous, Lena. You always have been. You can't stand that I'm the successful one. I laughed. Not loud, just a quiet, sharp sound that made her flinch. Successful? You haven't paid a bill in 2 years. You're one selfie away from bankruptcy. She stormed off toward the kitchen, probably to compose herself, or call her next victim. I looked around the table. No one moved. Even the candles seemed frozen mid-flicker. So I said the thing that had been sitting in my chest for years. You all think love means silence, but it doesn't. It means accountability. And if you can't tell the truth to family, what's the point of having one? Mom's eyes filled with tears, but they weren't for me. They were for the image that was cracking right in front of her. Then out of nowhere, someone clapped. It was Mark, the bartender friend. Yeah, I'd invited him. Not to cause drama, but because I needed one person at that table who wasn't blinded by nostalgia. He'd brought over a dessert bottle for after-dinner drinks, but clearly he didn't expect this show. He raised his glass and said, "Damn, that was better than Sunday night football." Everyone shot him a look, but it broke the tension just enough for me to breathe. Mom whispered, "How could you humiliate your sister like this?" I took a deep breath. I didn't humiliate her, Mom. She did that herself. I just stopped covering the mirror. Dad started to say something, but Hannah came back from the kitchen, pale, phone in hand. "You're going to regret this," she said. "You think this makes you look strong? You look pathetic." I stood up slowly. "Maybe, but at least I can afford to look pathetic without putting it on a credit card." She gasped, clutching her phone like a weapon. "You're insane." "Maybe," I said, walking to the door, "but I'm also done." I left the envelope on the table, every statement, every screenshot, every lie. And as I stepped outside, I heard Mom's voice crack behind me. "You've torn this family apart." I turned back just long enough to say, "No, Mom, I just stopped taping it together." The night air hit me like cold water. I walked to my car, heart pounding but weirdly steady. The porch light flickered above me, probably motion sensor, and I remember thinking how fitting that was. The truth, once it starts shining, never really stops. When I got home, my phone started blowing up. Texts from Hannah, from Mom, even from Dad. I didn't read them. I made tea, sat on my couch, and opened my laptop. I clicked on the credit account, the balance still blinking at me like a bruise. And then I hit dispute charge, one by one. By midnight, I'd filed a fraud claim. I sent them every screenshot, every message, every "it's handled." I didn't care if it ruined her credit or her brand. She'd already ruined mine. When I finally crawled into bed, I wasn't shaking, I wasn't crying, I was light, empty, in the best way, like dropping a weight you didn't realize you'd been carrying for a decade. And somewhere deep down, I knew. Next Sunday, there'd be no dinner, no toasts, no good plates. Just the sound of truth echoing in a house that finally ran out of lies. 3 days after the dinner, the group chat was on fire. Mom sent a message that started with, "We need to talk," followed by a wall of guilt-tripping text that could have been copy-pasted straight out of a Hallmark movie. Dad added one line, "You went too far." And Hannah? She sent me a voice memo, the modern-day war cry. I didn't listen. I deleted it before it could play. The silence afterward felt like the first real peace I'd had in years. The next morning, I woke up to an email from the credit company. The fraud claim was approved. The balance? Gone. Just like that. My chest actually hurt. Not from anxiety this time, but from relief. I laughed out loud in my kitchen like a crazy person. The sound echoed against the walls of my small apartment, and for once, I didn't care that no one was there to hear it. But peace never lasts long in a family like mine. That afternoon, Dad showed up at my place. I hadn't seen him outside that house in years. He stood at my door in his pressed shirt and disappointment. "Can I come in?" he asked, voice low. I hesitated, then stepped aside. He looked around like he was inspecting the space for signs of failure. "You know," he said finally, "your mother hasn't stopped crying since Sunday." I poured coffee for both of us. Maybe she should have cried years ago, would have saved us a lot of pretending. He didn't touch the cup. "You embarrassed your sister. You humiliated your mother." I leaned on the counter. "No, Dad, I told the truth. You all just don't like how it sounds out loud." He sighed, pinched the bridge of his nose, his favorite dramatic gesture. "You always have to make everything difficult, don't you?" That one got me. I stared at him, remembering all the times I'd swallowed my anger just to be the good one. The irony stung. "You raised me to fix things," I said quietly. "I just fixed the family lie." He stood there silent for a long time, then shook his head. You'll regret this someday. I already regretted staying quiet, I said. He left without another word. I didn't cry, I didn't chase him. I just closed the door, locked it, and leaned my forehead against the cool wood. For the first time, I realized you can love someone and still walk away. That night, Mark came by with a six-pack and a half smile. Heard you caused a domestic earthquake, he said. I snorted. Guess FEMA should send me a medal. We sat on the couch, sharing beer and silence. Then he said something that stuck with me. You didn't destroy anything, Lena. You just stopped letting people pretend the cracks weren't there. It was the simplest truth, and somehow it hit harder than any speech. A week later, karma decided to make things interesting. I got a DM from a woman named Tara Collins. She'd seen Hannah's name on a local business group page. Her message read, Hi, sorry to reach out of nowhere, but your sister promised me a mentorship package for $1,500. She ghosted me. Do you know how to contact her? My stomach dropped. I asked for details, and Tara sent screenshots, DMs, Venmo receipts, even a fake contract. It was all there. My sister had leveled up from scamming family to scamming strangers. I didn't even hesitate. I forwarded everything to the same fraud department that handled my claim. Then, maybe out of habit, I texted Hannah, You need to stop before someone stops you for real. She didn't reply, but that weekend, her little startup Instagram, the one she called Her Rise Coaching, vanished. Not deactivated, deleted. Poof. By Monday, I was getting calls from mutual acquaintances, all whispering versions of the same story. Investors demanding refunds, collaborations canceled, people finally catching on. One of them even said she tried to blame me online, but had no proof. Apparently, the truth doesn't need a PR team. Meanwhile, Mom called again. This time her tone wasn't angry. It was pleading. Can't you just let it go, Lena? She's your sister. I took a deep breath. Mom, I did let it go. The second I stopped paying for her mistakes. There was silence on the other end, then a sigh. You've changed. Yeah, I said. That was the point. For a while, the house went dark. No calls, no texts, no family dinners. Thanksgiving came and went without an invite. I spent it with some co-workers from the art school, people who didn't expect me to perform a version of myself. We had takeout turkey and cheap wine, and someone's dog kept trying to steal the stuffing. It was chaotic, loud, imperfect, and I felt more at home than I ever had at that polished dining table. One night in December, I got a message from Tara again. She said she'd posted her story online, not to attack, but to warn others. Within hours, others started sharing similar experiences. A whole thread formed titled, The Golden Coach Who Wasn't. I couldn't help it. I laughed. The irony was too perfect. People always say revenge doesn't heal you. Maybe that's true. But accountability? That's a whole different kind of medicine. Still, I didn't want Hannah's ruin. I just wanted my freedom. And maybe in some weird way, that's exactly what this was. Her crash was my release. A few days later, Mark asked me if I wanted to go hiking. We drove upstate, spent the day in near silence, just breathing mountain air and letting it all settle. Halfway through the trail, he said, You know, my sister did the same thing to me once. Different story, same script. Family can make you feel guilty for outgrowing your own chains. I didn't respond right away, but that line stayed with me all the way back down the trail, because he was right. When we reached the overlook, I looked out at the valley, wide, quiet, endless. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I wasn't the invisible sister anymore. I wasn't the fixer. I wasn't the quiet one. I was just me. And that was enough. Later that week, I got one last text from Hannah. No apology, no remorse, just, I hope you're happy now. I stared at it for a long time before replying. For the first time, yeah, I really am. Then I blocked her number. Because sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't ruining someone else's life. It's rebuilding yours without them in it. It's been 8 months since that dinner. 8 months since I walked away from the house with the good plates and the bad secrets. People say time heals, but honestly, it's not time that does it. It's distance. Distance from the people who confuse love with control, loyalty with silence, and forgiveness with forgetting. I live differently now. My apartment's still small, but it feels bigger somehow, lighter. I got a new job teaching art full-time at a community center downtown. The kids call me Miss L, and they paint like the world hasn't disappointed them yet. There's this one boy, Miguel, who refuses to use any color but blue. When I asked him why, he said, "Because blue never lies." I laughed then, but I think about that sentence a lot. Because maybe that's what I was searching for all along, a color that doesn't lie. My parents still don't talk to me much. Occasionally, Mom sends neutral texts like, "Hope you're doing okay," or "We saw snow this morning." It's her way of extending an olive branch without ever saying sorry, and that's fine. I've stopped expecting apologies from people who'd rather rewrite history than face it. Hannah, on the other hand, disappeared. At least from public view. Her coaching accounts vanished. Friends unfollowed her. Even her boyfriend, the one who used to tag her in every brunch photo, quietly deleted all their pictures. I heard through the grapevine that she moved to Austin to start over. Maybe she's working on herself. Maybe she's just looking for a new audience. Either way, it's not my job to find out. For a while, I wrestled with guilt. Like maybe I'd gone too far. Maybe I could have handled it differently. But then I remembered every sleepless night, every time I stared at my bank app, every time I swallowed my voice to keep peace that never existed. No, I didn't go too far. I just finally went far enough. One night, after class, I stopped by a small diner I used to go to as a kid. The kind that smells like bacon and nostalgia. The same waitress from years ago, Doris, was still there, still calling everyone honey. She looked at me and said, "You've got your mama's eyes." I smiled and said, "Yeah, but my own backbone." She laughed so hard she had to lean on the counter. That one line, half a joke, half the truth, stayed with me all the way home. Mark's still around, by the way. We never labeled whatever this is, and maybe we don't need to. He shows up with Chinese takeout when I've had a rough day, and I drag him to the farmer's market when he forgets what vegetables are. It's simple, it's kind, and it doesn't drain me. That's new for me. Love that doesn't come with an invoice. Last month, out of nowhere, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a check for $4,000 and a single line written in shaky handwriting. "I'm sorry, I can't undo it, but I can try to repay some of it. H." I sat there staring at it for a long time. Not because I needed the money, but because I finally saw something real from her. No filters, no performance, just guilt finding its way into ink. I didn't cash it. I tucked it into an old sketchbook, between 2 pages of unfinished paintings. Maybe someday I'll frame it, not as a reminder of debt, but as proof that even the golden ones eventually rust. The thing about breaking free is, it's not dramatic. There's no fireworks, no cinematic background score. It's quiet. It's waking up one day and realizing you don't flinch when your phone buzzes. It's cooking breakfast without a knot in your chest. It's laughing, really laughing, without wondering if someone's going to twist it against you. Sometimes people ask if I'd ever go back, if I'd forgive them, and I always say the same thing. Forgiveness isn't a key you hand back to the people who locked you up. It's the door you walk through when you're finally done waiting for them to knock. The other day, while cleaning, I found an old photo. Me and Hannah in matching dresses, maybe 8 and 10, grinning at the camera like we had the whole world ahead of us. I stared at it for a while, then tucked it back into a drawer. I didn't feel anger, just acceptance. Some people never grow up, they just grow better at pretending. As for me, I don't pretend anymore. I show up as I am, messy, flawed, honest, sometimes too honest. But I sleep better at night knowing the only lies I've buried are on old dinner tables, under candlelight, in houses that mistook silence for peace. The truth didn't break my family. It just revealed what was already broken. And maybe, just maybe, that's the only way anything ever really heals. Because here's what I've learned. Being the quiet one doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're patient, you're watching, you're waiting for the moment the noise collapses under its own weight. And when it does, when the lies crumble, the masks crack, and the good plates finally shatter, you don't need revenge. You just need peace. And that, my friend, is exactly what I found. If this story touched something in you, tell me in the comments. Have you ever had to walk away from someone you loved just to save yourself? Share your story, or even just how this one made you feel. I read every single comment. If you want to hear more true, emotional, and deeply human stories like this one, stories about strength, forgiveness, and the quiet kind of courage, hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a new story. Thank you for listening, for feeling, and for being here. Take a deep breath tonight. You've made it through worse. Here's to peace, the kind that stays even after the noise fades.